So guys, around a year ago I made a Blender tutorial in which I basically showed how to create a longbow, or rather the armature for it, so making it so it could move, rigging it. And I said that if I found a better way that I would create another video on that and ask people to comment. I got one comment that actually did. I think I asked people to comment. It's been a year. It's been a long time. But essentially, I did find a better way. This is the old version, and it had some issues. When you pull this back, if you look at the front of the bone up here, at the bend on it, bows do not bend forward like that. They kind of just pull straight back. So that's an issue with the model. Or not the model, but like that's an issue with the rigging that can be fixed. And so that's what I'm going to show today. So, started with a new model, and first thing I'm going to do is this model has some, actually no it doesn't, I fixed it earlier. Basically, first thing you want to do is make sure that your face orientation is set up properly so you don't have any wacky normals, which essentially if you have normals that are wacky, it'll change which side perceives the light and such. It makes it look weird. And in this case, because it's all blue, that means it's the outward facing side. You don't want to see any red in this particular instance. And so I'm good to go with that. And this particular model is just a quick, easy thing I made. You could use this method on pretty much any kind of bow, and it's a lot more, I guess it's a lot more intensive for the setting it up initially, but you also get far more control, and even then it's not that bad. And so what you do is you're going to start with a single bone. You're then going to grab or go to edit mode. For me, I can use tab. You can also go up here, change to edit mode. So I'm going to grab this, I'm going to move that a little bit, and I'm going to grab it on the Z, and I'm just going to put in the tail. I'm going to put a 0, and now it'll be nice and flat. If you have your model rotated weirdly, you might have to do X or Y instead. Then if I click 7, I can go to, I don't actually know what it's called, but basically top-down view, that's what it's called. Then if I shift Z, you can X-ray. And then with this, I'm going to create a bone. And this first bone is going to be the part of the bow that the person moves, or not moves, that the person holds and isn't going to really bend. Then the rest of the bones, I'm going to do just different points where it bends. And for this model, because it's so simple, that's really, really easy to find, is I can just put it where the vertices are. And there we go. Now we have the very basic for this part. And that is what will actually do the bending for this part of the rig. If I grab everything, I can shift D to duplicate it, and then rotate it on the X. Ooh, that's actually kind of interesting. I don't know what it's doing, but I don't want it doing that. Okay, 3D cursor, rotate it on the X, 180. Make sure it's not, occasionally if you do it like that, it will have some funky, interesting stuff where it will rotate slightly in another direction as well. In this case, it didn't do it. And now I have bones all the way across my bow. Now, if your bow isn't symmetrical, so like there are some Japanese bows that were extremely massive that weren't actually symmetrical, then you might just have to do the bottom side on your own, which isn't hard. It's the same process as done on the top. From there, you're going to click Shift A to add another bone, and you're going to do the same process, except in this case I'm dragging it along the X to where this string is. Then I'm going to just take this Z on the tail and send it down to 0, and then I'm going to grab this, drag it on the X, and if you look, you'll notice this tail is, or this bow is, or this bone is right here where the string is. It's going to be the string. When you grab it, it'll pull the string back. From this point on, you have a couple different options. The first option is to control parent this and do it with armature deform, or well, yeah, it's with automatic weights is the first option. Now, this can work, but it doesn't always. Like in this case, it's done something funky and just straight disconnected that. And because of that, I personally prefer not to use automatic brushes, or not brushes, the automatic version. It just isn't as good for me. And this one I can delete. It's from a earlier thing, nothing to do with this. So what I like to do is I will Control P parent with empty groups, and when you're doing this, you have to click on the mesh first and then the bones. Then you can Control P. I already did it, and with empty groups. And this will go a little bit into like how vertex groups work. But yeah, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to edit mode on the mesh in this data point. And you'll notice all my bones have nothing to identify them. So like bone 0.001, which one even is that? In this case I actually do know because I created them. It's going to be this bone. But for the sake of it being good practice and it's just helpful in general, I'm going to go through and name my bones. This is just going to be top 1, top 2, and other. This is where it's kind of more rigorous, I guess, is a word to use, where you have to go through these bones individually with this method, whereas other methods you really don't have to, because they're a lot more automated. I did 5 twice. I believe I did. So that's top 1, top 2, top 3, top 4, top 5, top 6, and then just bottom and Control C 1, bottom 2, bottom 3, bottom 4, bottom 5. It doesn't matter too much what you actually name them, so long as you know what they're doing and what whoever's using it knows how they work. And then I'm going to name this bone string. Now, what you're going to do is go to the mesh in object mode, click tab to go into edit mode, then grab this to here. So all these vertices are going to be part of the top 1 bone. So basically, when I parented this, it created groups for the different bones in the vertex group section, which can be found in the data. And when I put a vertex in here, so like if I assign that there, and then I go to the armature, say I do this, it'll now move that section of the mesh. And so now I'm going to go back to the mesh, and I'm going to grab these particular vertices for me because they are where the bone starts and ends, and I'm going to assign them to the bone that matches. And then that's wrong. If you look, I accidentally did too many to one bone. So it's going to go and 1, 2, 3. These are the only ones I actually want for bone 3. So I can go to all these other ones and click remove. And now when I go to top 3, I can click select, and it'll grab the bones for this one. Then I'm going to grab the ones for bone 4, or top 4, assign it. Top 5, assign it. Top 6, assign it. And then since I'm already there, let's go to string, assign the string. And then I'm going to do the bottom ones. It's the exact same process. Just grab them. And multiple vertices, or a vertex can be in multiple different groups. So in this case, for example, if I select this, you'll notice it's got these 3 different rows of vertices. And then if I go to top 1, selecting it will keep these selected and do that, which is a nice feature, very nice feature for character creation and such. But if I select this, this row is also there, and basically what it does is it makes it so each bone gets half the influence over these ones. And the automatic weight basically just assigns that value based on a radius around the bones, which I found doesn't usually work for me. So I'm going to go to the bottom now. So grab that, assign that to the bottom 2, grab that to bottom 3, assign that to bottom 4, assign that to bottom 5, assign that to bottom 6, and now if I go to object mode, go to the armature, should be able to grab that, it'll move the string. Now, obviously, it's not moving the actual limbs back, which is a problem. And in this case, we also have an issue with the string. So if we go to the mesh, go to edit mode, then select the string, you'll notice that these ones are selected when we don't actually want them to be. In this case, it's an instance of bad mesh design, in which this string is actually just hidden inside the limb. So this is something you generally don't want to actually do. But in this case, it's quick. It's more about the armature, and so I'm just going to grab this, remove it from the string vertex group, and at that point, you can go to this and just boom, and you'll see the string is working like normal. And what I did here is a little bit of a cheat. I basically made it so the string is just one flat face, not face, but like one section of face with a single divide in between, and that allows you to get it straight. If you don't have that, you will have a whole lot of issues getting your bowstring to pull correctly, and so this is the solution I found for that problem. Okay, now you go to the armature, and what you're going to do is you're going to extend, I don't want to extend both of them, you're going to grab this edge and then extend it on the X, and you can do this before if you choose to do so, and it's not a problem, it can actually be helpful. And by before I mean before you duplicate this. In this case, if you do that, then you're probably going to have to take this and remove deform. In this case, it won't harm or hurt to have deform on because I don't have it attached as a vertex group to the mesh. So either way, it has nothing connected to it to actually do anything to. And so for me, I'm just going to grab that. I'm going to actually take this tail value, the X for it, because it's on the X axis, which in Blender is red, at least Blender 4.0. I'm using a pretty old version at this point, just because my computer can't handle much better. Then I'm going to take it, and I'm going to put it into this one as well. So I should get basically an exact copy of the bone. Okay. Now, both of these bones, I do not want them parented to the rest of this, or they can't move how I want them to. So, I'm going to click Alt-P to clear the parent on this, and Alt-P to clear the parent on that as well. And essentially, what the parent does is it provides a hierarchy, I guess, is the right word, that connects the bones. So like, if I wanted to, I could disconnect the bone, but it still has the parent. And so if I were to, there are certain things I can do that would still use the parent. In this case, it makes it so that it's no longer going to move this stuff, but still parented. And for what we're going to need to do, that's problematic to have. At least for these two particular bones. These bones do need the parent. The string, because it was added with Shift A, does not have a parent and is already good to go. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go to pose mode. Within pose mode, there is bone constraints. Basically what these do is they'll change the behavior of a bone. For example, if I take this and I do limit distance, and then the first thing you're going to need is to connect it to the armature. This allows you to essentially have it so that this bone is targeting this set of bones. If you had two armatures, you might be able to connect it to a different one. I haven't actually tested it, but in this case, I want it connected to the string. What this will do is make it so that when I pull back on the string, that bone moves back as well. So I'm going to add it to this one as well, and again, connect it not to longbow but to armature, and then attach it to string. And normally you would want to name these bones something to let you know what they're doing. Like you could name them trackers or something. I'm too lazy at this point because it's pretty late at night, and I'm not that serious right now. But basically, if I do that, now it moves with that, and that's how the limbs are going to end up being moving. So what you're going to want to do is, and this is the second part that makes this a more strenuous method, the track to. And you're going to just add it to every bone that you want to actually move. And we're using this instead of inverse kinematics, which most bones use, because I've been able to get better results out of this one. Again, it's a little bit harder of a process, but the results are much superior in my opinion. At least with realistic bows. The fantasy bows, the tutorials I saw on them, could, like, they work perfectly fine there, but I couldn't get them working on a realistic one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to track to and armature. And because of how my brain works, I'm just going to do the armature on all of these first, and then I'll move it to the bone. Okay. This bone is going to be, okay. And now you see how they both have top and bottom? That will let me know in this case, so I don't have to actually change the name. Though again, it's good practice to change it, but for this particular instance, I'm not going to because I'm lazy. So I'm going to cause this to track to the top. If you notice, it did something very funky. And essentially, that is because it is on the wrong up in this case, and possibly the wrong track axis as well. We'll see when we move this. So let's just add. Alright, it's the Y axis in this particular instance. If you notice, that gives it some level of bend. And so we're basically just going to do that for all of them. So, top, Z, Y, Z, Y, then top, then Z, Y, and then top, then Z, Y, and top. And what I'm going to do here is reduce the well, actually I'm going to do this to the rest of them, just so we can get to the same point on both sides. You can skip to the point in the video where this is already done, and it shouldn't harm you any. So, bottom this time, Z, Y, was it negative? No? Okay. Okay. Notice each time it gets a little bit more close to the tail of that string. Not necessarily sure why it had the issue in the first place, but it doesn't matter too much. In fact, it shouldn't matter at all. Okay, I'm going to now reduce the influence on each of the bones. So in this case, like I'm going to move this to 0.2, 0.1. This will give the bow its bend back while still allowing, like, the initial bend. I'll show you in a second what I mean. Essentially, if you look, this side is nice and bent like a bow should be. This side's like completely pulled straight, which is not what a bow should be. Crossbow, when it's loaded, yes, but not a bow. And so then I'm just going to do the exact same values, but for the opposite side. So in this case, I put the first one as 0.2, but I put the rest of them as 0.1. And that's what I'm going to do here. And then I'm just going to grab that on the X. Actually, no. I'm going to take these. I'm going to actually move all of them to the X in edit mode. And that still gives you this weird funky thing. If you take this, never mind. I'm just not going to do that. Okay. Now, with this, I can just move this, get it to the right spot. And then, if you look, when you grab the string, pull it back, it starts pulling the bow back. And it gives a much more natural curve. In this case, you might want to increase the influence of your trackers a bit much, because if you notice, you need a whole heck of a lot of bend on this one before the bow starts bending. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start moving these ones up to 0.2. I still keep the curve because it's not the full influence pulling it straight, but it also allows me to grab it on the X, get a nice bend without the pushback in the front area that the original method had. And that's how you make a bow with a very intensive method, but that provides great results. Like and subscribe. Probably won't release much content, but have a good day.